Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have another episode in the Remarriage Club series for you. Today, I have Monica Lynch, not in the studio. I was about to say in the studio, but then I realized we're actually on Zoom. So I have Monica Lynch on Zoom where we're recording this podcast episode. Monica is an attorney and a former JAG officer who has been divorced and is now happily remarried. And she's here to tell you her dating story. So Monica, welcome. Thank you for being here. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name's Monica Lynch, and I am currently a government attorney. I've been that the better part of 20 years. And I also have helped people navigate transitions through a great part of my career. And I am happily remarried. I have two lovely boys and a husband at home, and, just doing a ton of things at the same time, but having a wonderful family life. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to start from the point right after your divorce. And when we talked earlier, you had said, well, you were sort of unrecognizable as a person after your divorce, and you felt a lot of rejection, and you started dating as a way to sort of explore and rebuild and get a new perspective on life. Could you tell us a little bit about what happened and how dating helped you expand your horizons?
Well, for me, I had no sense of self. Like, I had completely lost myself in the marriage. And so whatever my spouse wanted, I went along with it and wanted it too. And by the end of it, by the time we got divorced, I was left to pick up the pieces, and I had no idea who I was. And so what I did was, kind of starting with a blank slate, really try to learn about myself. And I realized early on that when I was ready to get back into dating, that I was putting too much expectations on every single date. And then if it didn't work out, it felt like this big wave of rejection again. So what I decided to do was just to take a breather and really train myself to stop expecting so much with every date, and just agreed to say, okay, if I can date this person in public, be with them 3 hours, then I will say yes, because I needed to learn about myself and about what I liked and didn't like. And so I started doing that. And it would be a coffee, an ice cream, a drink. That's it. No expectations. And I think I was on, I don't know, at least 50 dates easily.
Nice.
Yeah. But I finally broke that train of thought that tied my worthiness to the outcome of a date.
Oh, that's so good. And actually, that reminds me of sort of this, and I don't know if you experienced this when you were a teenager, when you met that boy at school that you had a crush on, and we would go home and write his last name when we were 12 or 13. That's the same train of thought. And It's interesting that I have always seen divorce and the growth after divorce as sort of this growing up process, like any arrested development that we had. Divorce and dating and healing after divorce is an opportunity to heal all of that. And so if we're finding ourselves picking out the wedding china on the first date, and I have done this, I will confess, I think I've talked about it on the podcast. I went on this one date, and he was so cute. He had a British accent. It was great. I went home and called my sister and said, I'm getting married. This is my early on in my dating journey. And I had to learn the same thing. But I think it's really helpful for the listeners to understand that, this is normal, first of all, for a 12-year-old. And if it's showing up at 40, we've got a little bit of work to do. And what's interesting is that this work doesn't show up until you start dating. You don't know that you're that person until you go on a few dates and you're like in love on the first date, having those expectations and realizing, oh, I have to learn to de-escalate the dating process. So you said like you went on these 50 dates, and what did it do for you? What did like going on 50 dates with people that you didn't necessarily want to get married to, how did that change your thinking?
First of all, it removed my worthiness to the outcome of the date. So I was able to date without feeling bad about myself if it didn't work out, like some sort of long-term relationship. It also helped me learn about who I thought was dateable, because I met all different sorts of people, and I realized that there are things that I really appreciated. And I had been very like narrow focused, and I just learned more about things that I valued. And then, it just also makes for an enriching experience. For me, it was, I'm not saying every single date was amazingly fun, but it was definitely a good story to look back on and just be like, remember when this happened or this happened. So I just think for personal growth, it's a great thing too. Even if at the end of it, you're like, well, not going to see that person again, but that's okay. So for me, I needed that experience.
Right. I call that stage like casual dating. I think casual dating is like a real thing. So I walk my clients through, about 6 phases of dating all the way to commitment. And I think laying it out that way helps them see, oh, I'm in the casual dating phase. Like nothing is happening yet. Nothing is happening. I'm learning how to date. I'm practicing. I'm getting out there. Dusting off my social skills. I'm learning what I want. Sort of having this education that I didn't have early on. So thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. I love that you did it like consistently so that you have like the numbers and you can show that it's possible and it's not a big deal. So tell us how that led to you meeting your husband.
Well, during that time, my husband is actually somebody that I've known since I was 14, and we were friends, and I always thought he was cute, but like, nothing ever happened. And over the years, he and I had moved to different cities and traveled, but if we happened to be, our home base town was the same. So if we happened to be in the same area, we'd meet up, share a meal, and just very pleasant exchanges, like just a really nice friendship. And, I had been casually dating for the better part of a year. And I went through a really powerful experience. It was a military mission where we were supporting some hostages that had been released. And so we were providing the family support and all of this, and it was a team of us. And I was kind of like getting tired of the casual dating. And there was a chaplain on the team, and I don't know what we were talking about exactly, but he looked at me and he said, Monica, you're allowed to want marriage and family if that's what you want. And when he said it, it was like 2 a.m. We had been like averaging 4 hours of sleep. We were, I like burst into tears because I realized that undercurrent that I was feeling, that there was a part of me that was afraid that maybe marriage and family was not going to be for me, and I hadn't realized that until somebody outside the situation came along and said, you can give yourself permission to want what you want.
Yes.
And it was like, and I'm telling you, that happened. And once I realized, okay, this is what I want, and I embraced it, then I get an email from my future husband. Hey,
there's the magic.
How's it going? I'm here in my bachelor pad. I was just thinking about you and hope everything's going. I mean, like soon afterwards, after that conversation. And so I kind of felt like I had to align that energy, that openness, because if you're grabbing onto something else, which is fine if that's what you want, but if you're grabbing onto something else that you don't want for fear of going after what you do want, you're not going to get the thing that you want. Like there needs to be an alignment there. And so we just started emailing, and the emails turned to phone calls. And then I was going home for a wedding, and I was going to be there for a couple of weeks. And he's like, hey, I have an extra car. Don't rent a car. Because it was like, you know how expensive it is to rent a car. He's like, I'll pick you up from the airport. And we talked about dating. And I was just like, what if we ruin our friendship? You know, what if we cross this line and we ruin it? And he said, you know, I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to make it. I think we'll survive whatever happens. And that was it. Like, we were, you know, engaged 10 months later.
Yeah. And how long have you been married now?
It has been 11 wonderful years. I mean, it is just, you know, second time is sweeter. It really, like, you're so much more prepared as a spouse. You really learn what matters and what doesn't matter. And you also just stand up for yourself more. You know, we're not taught to really have our boundaries respected. Like, women, I feel, are socialized. Like, it's all about sacrifice and serving and disappearing yourself in a certain sense. And you know, that's not fun for a partner either. Like, a loving partner,
a healthy partner doesn't want that.
Wants to see you succeed in your own right, whatever that means. And so, I'm having a great time.
He's having a great time too. So tell us a little bit more about you not giving yourself permission to want what you want. Like, I have literally said this 1,000 times to my clients and to my audience. I'm pretty sure I have a podcast episode on giving yourself permission to want what you want. So you are not the only one that had that. Like, why were you not embracing wanting to get married again?
Fear of having it blow up in my face. You know, I was the first one in my family to get divorced. It was a very big deal. My family's huge. Like, that's saying something. And I just felt like I worked so hard to not have things work out. And I think it was fear holding me back. But you hear that saying, everything you want is on the other side of fear. And I think that's very true, because once you take that leap of faith, then, like I tell other people, you know your intentions and you know what you're going in, and that's all you can control. And that has to be enough, you know, because you can never guarantee an outcome of everything. You can stack the odds in your favor, but that's it.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's fear, the fear of being disappointed, like the fear of putting yourself out there, going on dates, working through the apps, maybe even working through a coach or paying for stuff, like all of that investment of time and money and energy in the hopes that you find this amazing partner. The fear that you won't find that partner can keep you from even trying, which is just disappointment ahead of time. Right. Like, I'm just going to be disappointed now.
It's guaranteed disappointment.
Yes. Versus, it's a risk, but there is a possibility. And then depending on which process you choose, right? Depending on whether or not you look at the process, getting the support you need, using the resources, growing and learning like you did, all of those things, like you said, they stack the odds in your favor that you're going to succeed, versus doing nothing and deciding, it's not for me, or it doesn't happen, or all the stories out there are fake, which I've heard that also, which is one of the reasons I love all these stories, is because I wanted to tell people, no, these stories are not fake. There are happily remarried women out there in the world. We just don't have a place to go talk to them, except on my podcast. So you had said that you hinted somewhere in there about like doing it the second time around is sweeter because of just how you showed up different this second time. So what was different about you? What was the work that you did? How did you get to that point of being able to have a successful second marriage?
So I'm not saying everybody needs to do this. But when I made that connection with my husband, the following week put myself in therapy, and I said, I am going to do the work because I think this is real, and I'm going to do the work to be the best partner, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And if you're not whole, you're not going to be whole in a relationship. Nobody can complete you, And I tell people too, I'm like, if you're not better together with your partner than you are apart, then what are you doing? Like there's no added value. Like, and so for me, I think that was the difference. I was so much more aware what I was bringing into the relationship. And first of all, what I needed to work on, because nobody's perfect, but I was willing to work on, which is a difference. And what I wanted and what I would not accept. So all of those things. And I was okay, even though I was crazy about my husband, I was okay with walking away if this isn't going to be what it needs to be a fulfilling, loving relationship. And that's the difference. I was not scared to walk away if I had to.
That's such a healthy place to be, right? Like not being so attached, like you said, to dates, first of all, but even when you are in a relationship, not being so attached to the person that if something did show up that was a problem, you couldn't walk away.
Yep.
That is like the epitome of being like a whole person. You're like, oh, wait, I am a whole person. And if something toxic is happening here and that I need to protect myself from, I love myself enough to do what needs to be done. Oh, I love my children enough to do what needs to be done about the relationship.
Yeah. And the standard is not perfection, right? Because nobody is perfect. And of course there are challenges and there are things that you work on, but there are baseline things, whatever that is for you, that you shouldn't have to tolerate in a relationship. And if somebody feels that you're willing to tolerate it, then they lose respect for you. And then there's a breakdown, and then it goes south. And I think there's also another dynamic, which didn't come to play with us, but I've seen a lot, is that women will often look at potential instead of seeing their partner for who they are. Yeah. Like if your partner would not change at all, would you be okay? Would you be happy with who you have now?
Yes.
And if the answer is no, he better do X, Y, Z, then it's like, no, then this is not the person for you.
Yes. If you need him to change.
Yes.
For you to be happy, to be acceptable, for your relationship to be healthy. If he needs to change, if he needs to quote unquote do some work and you're just holding, off or waiting for him to do that work in hopes, that's not going to work. Right. Yeah. Like you said, you have to accept what you see in front of you. And if what you see in front of you is not right for you, you need to be willing to walk away. I love that. I love that you have so much clarity around these. And a lot of times it sounds like walking away sounds so harsh and so mean, but I really love how you present it as very neutral.
No,
there's no bitter energy or angry energy or anything behind it. It's just, this is the decision.
Yeah, it is actually, I think, from very much a place of calm. It is a release, because when even if you're upset and you're in it and there's like, you're fighting for the relationship. I'm a big fan of working for a relationship, but there is a point where, you have to call it. And I know that there are things that, and my husband loves me, but if there were certain things that happen, he would not tolerate it. That there's, like everybody has their line, and you have to respect the dignity of each person in a relationship and know like you cannot ever cross this line. And whatever it is, you need to know that about yourself and know that about your partner.
I love that. It's so good. So you had said something earlier about how your husband was very respectful of the institution of marriage. Like
Yes.
he didn't want to rush things. He like was really careful. Could you tell us about that? Because I remember that there's sort of like this juxtaposition between where women are like, oh, we're just not rushing things, or he's just not in a place to commit right now. And then they're in this relationship for like 3 years with a guy who just doesn't want to commit versus a guy who's like being very measured and deliberate and moving towards a commitment. Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates, so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
I believe that even if the actions aren't there, if you're doubting if the feelings aren't there, then there's your answer. It's like being a little bit pregnant. Either you're in it or you're not.
You're not.
That's it. And so for him, the feelings were there, the expressions were there, the commitment, the fidelity was there, but the idea of marriage was one that, he wasn't so afraid that he wasn't going to get married, but he was just very careful because for him, it was like, I'm a child of divorce. I'm doing this once. I don't, and so he definitely took his time. I'm smiling to myself because I'm remembering when we first got together and we were in Florida, in hometown. We spend these 2 magical weeks together. We see each other day and night. We're just like, we've known each other for 17 years. So this dating is like super intense because we're just going crazy for each other. I think one day I didn't see him. And so it's towards the end of my trip and I'm just like all starry eyed and can't wait to see how this goes. And he's like, okay, well, bye. And I was like,
wait, what?
What? Because I was in the Army. I was stationed in Texas. Like, it would be long distance, but to me, I'm like, all right, this is the long distance phase. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, what do you think is going to happen, with this? What are we going to do? Long distance and say, oh, how was your day? And, oh, well, what's going on over there? I was like, yes, actually.
That's
and then
exactly
we get on
what
the planes. That's exactly what we're going to do until we figure out more long-term things. And he's like, well, I don't know how that's going to work. And we got into this big argument. And I remember just being like, if you're willing to experience this time and then not keep trying to keep it up, then you're not the man I thought you were. Bye. And he left.
Wow.
I think I called him a coward. Oh my gosh. I was so angry. Obviously, I'm laughing now, but so he left. And part of me is like, oh my gosh, Monica, what did you do? And part of me is like, no, this is something that I feel deeply and I should know now. If he's not willing to do the work, so be it.
Yeah.
And he came back later that afternoon and he's like, you know what? You're right. I am being a coward. I'm being scared and I want to try. I want to try to make this work. And that was it. So, I think if I had stayed quiet or just like not push the issue or anything. Who knows where we'd be? We probably wouldn't have made it. But when you say, now, if you don't want to do this, that's fine. But this is where I'm at. And again, I was willing to vote with my feet, even though I really thought there was something there. It made all the difference. And, he definitely is a devoted spouse, and he's just an excellent father. So I do believe that you can have a healthy respect of an institution, but if it's arresting your development to the point that you won't commit and that sort of thing, then you need to do some work around that.
Yeah. And I love that you were like so healed and like assertive enough to say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I want. Right. And a lot of women are actually willing to ask for what they want, but then they wait to get what they want. Like, I'm going to wait. I've asked him for what I want. I'm going to wait a year to get what I want. Like, you were like, I'm asking for what I want now. And if you're not willing to do the work now, I'm willing to walk away. And I think there's something about the way you ask it, like because you can ask it, but then the person knows you're not serious about it. The person knows you're not actually going to walk away. They know you're going to stick around and wait for them to not commit for 3 years or not commit for 2 years. But like you were, and I'm searching for the word, I guess grounded, or you actually felt that belief inside of you, and you communicated that belief that, hey, I'm here for a long-term relationship. And if you're not, that's fine, but I'm not going to wait around for it. And he had to decide at that moment if he was in it or not. And I think that's just so powerful. As women, we have to be in charge of our journey.
Yes.
Other people are in charge of their journey, and that's okay. And sometimes our journeys come together and sometimes they don't. But if you don't communicate your journey, if you don't know what your journey is, the first step of my program is actually clarity for my clients. Like, you need to be crystal clear about what you want, crystal clear about who it is you're looking for, what your timeline is, what commitment looks like for you, so that you can communicate that when the time comes. And also then that, like, not being so attached that you hang around for something that isn't what you want. That's amazing. That's such a great story. I hadn't heard that story. So good. All right. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts. I made a note here, but I don't even remember what we were talking about on this. Your thoughts on online dating versus organic dating. Like, I teach my clients both how to date online and how to date in person through their network, through their community. You dated online and had a certain experience that you thought was good and useful. And then you also dated in your network. You met your husband through your network. And I think it almost sounds like your ability to date long distance and all of that was fueled by the fact that you'd known him for such a long time. So it wasn't this weird, I've never seen this person, but we're dating kind of situation. What's your take on online dating versus organic dating? I know my take is women should be doing both at all times. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think, when you are kind of in that search, you should be open, because life takes many turns and you don't know how life will put the person for you in your path. So why not do it? I'm not saying like every person in every place should use every service, because I know that some online dating is better in certain areas than other. It depends on your demographics and that sort of thing. But do the research and see, what apps you find appealing, and, do something low threat. I'm a big fan, like cup of coffee, an hour, and public place, and you just meet some people and you learn more about yourself. I'm so glad I did it. So I definitely wouldn't turn down different avenues. Why? Like, if you're really in this exploring phase, and I say go for it, And what's funny is a lot of times you may find that you have some sort of organic connection that you wouldn't have known if you had not met the person online. So
yes, I met my husband online, and then come to find out that we had a mutual friend. Like, I was like, wow, that's interesting. I should have asked her years ago if she knew anyone who was single.
There you go. I think technology is amazing. So,
Yeah.
I now when I did online dating, it was pretty new. It was like 15 years ago. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was the plenty of fish match,
Mm-hmm.
kind of phase. And now there's so many wonderful options,
There are so
especially
many
for women.
more. There's some newer ones. It like you said, it all depends on the geographical area. What I've found is that people in certain areas tend to gravitate to certain apps. So depending on where you live, you kind of have to just figure out which is the one that works in my area and try one and then try another one and just keep going. Um, the the part about sort of like getting that education, I think it's almost like there's an education that many of us didn't get when we are dating the first time. Many of us dated and got married the second boyfriend or even the first boyfriend, or, because especially if you came from a conservative background,
Yeah.
and being open to all of these avenues, being open to trying different dating apps, being open to working with a coach or dating through your network, learning how to date at events, learning how to be introduced on blind dates. It's all an education that we can learn it. It's almost like we have to develop this self-trust to trust yourself, to go on an app, learn how to do it right, and trust that you can keep yourself safe.
Yes. I mean, it really is the more effort you make, the more you need to be secure in your sense of self and worthiness. Because if you're trying to escape the pain and trauma of divorce, or, the pain of loneliness and that sort of thing, this isn't going to fix that. But if you're coming from a place like, hey, I know what I bring to the table. I know that I make an excellent partner, and I'm, looking for something serious, and I want to be this loving partner to, the right person. That coming from that place of worthiness is a very different experience. You're not trying to fill a hole. You're not trying to ease a pain. You're trying to just, kind of level up your life.
Yes. Yeah. Like your life is good and you're enjoying your life.
Yep.
And then you're ready to take it to the next level and really have what you want. You're ready to say, I have this desire not to fill a hole, but it's part of my life vision. I want to have it. So I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a great conversation. So, Monica, tell the listeners, like, if you were to give your best piece of advice, I know you've given them so much advice already, like literally, you've dropped so many bombs about your process, which I think many of my guests have leaned to one way or another in their process, but you literally you kind of went both ways and had like this really neutral, open way of approaching dating, which is what I teach. But if you were to pick one thing and say, this is the one thing, if you don't do anything else, what would that piece of advice be?
Know yourself. That is like the greatest piece of advice. Know yourself. So know your history, know the stories you've been telling yourself, know the cultural expectations you're coming from, know what is actually you and what is just programming that maybe you've been susceptible to. So you need to know all of those things, because once you have a secure sense of self, then you can be and know what you want. You can be the best partner.
Yeah. You can be the best partner. You can weather everything that happens on the dating journey.
Yes, because it's all part of the journey. And it's not, you're going to be alone forever. It's like, no, I'm gathering info. I'm learning. I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about other people, what I want, what I don't want, and, taking it all in stride. But when you have like that long-term vision, these little bumps in the road are just that,
100%. Oh, that's such great advice. Thank you, Monica, for your time. Appreciate the wealth of wisdom that you've brought to the listeners. Please tell them again what you do, where they can find you, how they can connect with you if they want to have a conversation, or if they want to ask you questions about loving themselves. Where can they reach you?
Instagram, Ms. MS Monica Lynch, MONICA LYNCH. It's the easiest way. Shoot me the message. I would love to talk to your listeners. And I really just appreciate your time, and the work that you do is just incredible, because you're really giving women the ability and the strength to go after what they want, because they deserve it.
Yes, yes, we do. We do. Thank you so much, Monica. I appreciate it. What a great conversation. I can't wait for this one to come out for the listeners. And for everyone listening, we're going to have Monica's Instagram in the show notes. Connect with her, follow her on Instagram, reach out to her with your questions. And if you're interested in taking this work deeper and following a process that takes you step by step through all of it, through the healing, through the growth, through the dating, all the way to commitment, you have my link in the show notes where you can book an appointment with me, shadicurry.com/schedule-appointment. Thank you for your time and attention, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to shadicurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.